You are exactly 30 feet behind your companion. 30 feet. That is not a long distance. That is the length of 2 parked cars. That is a gap you could close in 4 seconds at a light jog if you suddenly needed to. You can see your companion's shoulders. You can see their pace. You can see the steady, rhythmic swing of their arms in the blinding California sun. They can see you if they turn around. They just turned around. You make eye contact. You smile. You raise your right hand and give a small, casual wave. You tell yourself that you are fine. The trail smells violently of dry white sage, crushed pine needles, and warm, irradiated granite. It is exactly 1:52 in the afternoon on a Sunday in June. The light cutting through the San Gabriel Mountains is the particular flat, shadowless white of a summer sky with absolutely no clouds. The decomposed granite under your boots feels solid and permanent. Your companion smiles back, turns their head forward, and continues walking up the trail. You have exactly 40 seconds left on this planet. In 40 seconds, your companion is going to stop and turn around again to ask if you want a drink of water, and you will not be there. There will be no scream, there will be no sound of a struggle, there will be no sliding rock, no falling debris down the ravine, no scuffle in the dirt. You are not going to slip and fall. You're not going to suffer a medical emergency. You're not going to run away. In exactly 40 seconds, the physical laws of the universe are going to fold over you, and you're going to be completely and instantaneously erased from 3-dimensional space. But to understand how a human being evaporates into thin air in broad daylight, leaving absolutely zero trace behind, we have to rewind the clock. We have to go back 36 months. We have to go back to the laboratory. Because you didn't just disappear, you were extracted. Because you committed the one unforgivable sin in the military-industrial complex. You knew entirely too much. Your name is Dr. Monica Jacintin Reza. You are 60 years old. You are the Director of Materials Processing at NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory, JPL, located at 4800 Oak Grove Drive in Pasadena, California. You hold a doctorate in materials science and engineering. Your specific, highly classified domain is failure modes and effects criticality analysis. FMEA. You study the behavior of matter under extreme apocalyptic conditions, thermal response, high-pressure kinetic shear stress, the atomic level degradation of advanced aerospace alloys during atmospheric reentry. You don't build the rockets, you build the armor, you build the skin of the craft that survives the fire. Your colleagues describe you as a person made entirely out of consistency. You arrive at Building 212 at exactly 7:15 every morning. You leave at exactly 6:40 every evening. You are fiercely rational. You do not perform your expertise, you simply wield it. You are the final authority. When an incredibly expensive piece of diagnostic equipment produces an anomalous data set, they bring the numbers to you. You are the one who can look at a spreadsheet that defies the laws of thermodynamics and tell the room with quiet, surgical precision whether the machine is broken or whether reality is. For 23 years, you have operated within the strictest confines of federal classification protocols. You hold a TS-SCI clearance, top secret, sensitive compartmented information. You are read in to unacknowledged waived special access programs. Your department regularly processes black budget materials for the Department of Defense, and because you work in the dark, you follow the insider rules. Rule number 1 of the Deep Materials Lab. When the military brings you a sample in a lead-lined lockbox, you do not ask about the supply chain. You don't ask about the provenance. You don't ask if the debris came from a crashed stealth drone in a foreign desert, or a DARPA black site, or the bottom of the ocean. You just run the tests, write the reports, hand over the encrypted hard drives, and forget you ever saw it. You are a cog in a machine designed to compartmentalize information. The United States defense apparatus operates on a principle called stovepiping. The propulsion engineers never talk to the aerodynamic engineers. The metallurgists never talk to the radar technicians. No single person is ever allowed to see the whole puzzle. But 3 years ago, the consistency of your life shatters. The system makes a mistake, and they bring the wrong puzzle piece to the wrong genius. It starts on a Tuesday. A secure courier arrives at the sub-basement lab. They do not wear standard NASA badges. They are accompanied by 2 men in plain dark suits who do not offer their names and do not speak. They bypass the standard JPL security checkpoint. They bring a sealed, climate-controlled Pelican case that requires a biometric retina scan and a 12-digit rolling encryption key just to disengage the latches. There is no accompanying paperwork, no terrestrial manufacturer listed, no alloy composition estimates. The intake manifest simply describes the object using a phrase that defense scientists use when they are legally prohibited from typing the word metamaterial. The phrase is non-standard origin. In a room full of men who have the power to disappear you into a federal black site, non-standard origin is the bureaucratic camouflage you use when you are not allowed to say the word extraterrestrial. You take the sample out of the static-free foam lining. It is small, no larger than a thick paperback book. It looks like a jagged shard of dull, matte gray metal. It feels incredibly light in your gloved hand, almost hollow, like a piece of pumice stone. But when you tap it against the stainless steel workstation, it rings with the dead, heavy acoustic density of depleted uranium. You don't know it yet, but this piece of metal is the reason you're going to die. Or worse, you boot up the analytical instruments. You're a scientist. You believe with absolute religious conviction that if you measure carefully enough, the physical data will always tell you what a thing actually is. You start with a standard elemental breakdown using the SEMEDS, the scanning electron microscope, equipped with energy dispersive X-ray spectroscopy. You calibrate the electron beam looking for backscattered electrons to reveal the atomic contrast. You are looking for the crystalline structure, the microscopic fingerprint that tells you exactly how this metal was forged in a foundry. You lean in, you adjust the focal parameters down to the micron level. The image resolves on your high-definition monitor. The breath leaves your lungs. What you're looking at is physically impossible. The primary matrix is a magnesium-zinc alloy, but running through the metal are microscopic, alternating bands of pure bismuth. And they aren't just mixed. They are layered. At the sub-micron scale, the bismuth and magnesium alternate in perfectly uniform geometric striations. The bismuth layers are exactly 1 to 4 microns thick. There are thousands of them. You zoom in closer using a dual beam-focused ion beam to map the structure at the nanometer scale. The bismuth-rich portions do not have a normal, naturally occurring crystalline structure. They consist of highly engineered nanocrystalline pockets suspended inside an otherwise completely amorphous matrix. It is layered at the atomic level. Nothing in nature forms like this. And no metallurgical facility on Earth weaves bismuth and magnesium together at the subatomic scale. The manufacturing process required to layer these specific elements at a thickness of 1 micron would require manipulating individual atoms in a zero-gravity vacuum. It would cost trillions of dollars just to produce a single cubic centimeter of it. It doesn't look like a forged metal. It looks grown. You print the images out at 8 by 10. You tell a colleague, completely off the record, that anything that cannot exist without a reason for existing always leaves a pattern. This material has a pattern. It looks like a sprawling metropolis viewed from 30,000 feet. It looks like a microscopic circuit board. It was mathematically organized. Rule number 2 of the Deep Materials Lab. You document the results, no matter how impossible they are. You move to the isotopic analysis. You run a multi-collector inductively coupled plasma mass spectrometry test, an MCICP-MS. You are checking the isotopic signature of the magnesium. Isotopes are forms of the same element with different masses. Every single rock, piece of metal, and drop of water in our solar system shares a specific isotopic signature. It is a cosmic fingerprint inherited from the local dust cloud that formed our sun billions of years ago. You look at the graph on your monitor. The kinetic and equilibrium mass fractionation trend lines of this metal fall completely outside the baseline of our solar system. The isotopic ratio is violently fractionated. It wasn't made here. It wasn't made anywhere near here. Your hands begin to shake, but you push forward. You move to the FMECA protocols, the thermal stress tests. This is what the men in the dark suits actually want. They want to know how much punishment the hull can take. They want to strap this armor to a hypersonic nuclear missile. You secure the sample inside a stagnation arc jet chamber. You hit it with a simulated atmospheric re-entry heat flux, firing a nanosecond end-YAG laser directly at the surface. You push the localized heat load to 4,000 degrees Fahrenheit. a temperature that would turn military-grade aerospace titanium into bubbling liquid slag. You watch the high-speed infrared camera feed. You wait for the melt layer to form. You wait for the ablative shear stress to rip the sample apart. It doesn't melt, it doesn't warp, it doesn't even glow red. Instead, the material adapts. The sensors inside the vacuum chamber spike violently. The layered bands of bismuth and magnesium begin to vibrate. You realize with a creeping, visceral dread that the material is not resisting the heat, it is actively routing it. The internal layered structure is acting as a sub-wavelength waveguide. It is taking the raw thermal energy, reorganizing its own atomic lattice in real time to disperse the load, and broadcasting the heat outward as an electromagnetic terahertz frequency. And as the heat increases, the electromagnetic sensors in your lab start screaming. The metal is creating localized lift. It is managing its own plasma boundary layer. It is altering the permittivity and permeability of the space immediately surrounding it. It is generating a localized anti-gravitational field. By routing heat into frequency, it is negating its own inertial mass. You cut the power to the laser. The room goes dead silent. The metal sits there on the testing rig, perfectly intact, completely cool to the touch. You stare at it through the reinforced glass. And in this exact moment, you cross the invisible, lethal line between being a trusted analyst and becoming a catastrophic liability to the global world order. You realize that the government suits who brought this to you didn't know what it actually was. They just knew it was crashed debris. They brought it to you to figure out the mechanics of the armor, but you figured out too much. You bypassed the compartment. You saw the entire puzzle. You mapped the terahertz frequencies. You mapped the atomic resonance. You didn't just observe the metal. You accidentally figured out how the engine works. The metal isn't just a piece of debris. It is a solid-state machine. A machine with no wires, no silicon chips, and no moving parts. The alloy itself is the computer. The alloy itself is the propulsion drive. And you realize the terrifying geopolitical implications of what you just documented. If this material can passively route thermal energy into localized gravitational manipulation, it means combustion engines are obsolete. It means the laws of thermodynamics, as written in human textbooks, are incomplete. It means infinite, clean, zero-point energy is entirely possible. Your heart pounds against your ribs like a trapped bird. You realize that if you publish this data or if this technology is reverse engineered and released to the public, the global economy collapses overnight. The petrodollar ceases to exist. The trillion-dollar fossil fuel industry, the aerospace defense contractors, the energy monopolies, they all drop to zero. The conspiracy isn't just about hiding aliens. The conspiracy is about maintaining absolute control. The shadow government operating the unacknowledged special access programs does not want free energy. They do not want humanity to evolve. They want dominance. And you just wrote down the blueprint to their worst nightmare. You sit down at your secure terminal to write the report. You use the approved bureaucratic camouflage. You write the word anomalous. You document the isotopic ratios and the basic thermal resistance. You deliberately omit the waveguide data. You hide the anti-gravitational lift. You hand the classified drive to the DoD liaison, and you keep the real data locked inside your own eidetic memory. You look the liaison in the eyes. You expect him to nod and walk away. Instead, he looks at the data, looks back at you, and his expression goes completely dead. He doesn't say thank you. He just leaves. You thought you were protecting yourself. You thought that by hiding the most explosive data, you could just be a scientist doing your job and fade back into your consistent life. You were wrong. In the world of the program, holding back data is the exact same as declaring war. Over the next 36 months, your life slowly stops belonging to you. The paranoia does not happen like it does in a spy movie. Nobody pulls a gun on you in a parking garage. Nobody leaves a threat on your windshield. It is much quieter than that. It is a systemic, creeping, suffocating psychological warfare campaign designed to slowly break your mind. It is a technique developed by intelligence agencies called Zersetzung, the systemic degradation of a target's reality. First, it's your digital footprint. You're a scientist. You understand radio frequencies and network architecture. You start noticing that your JPL secure terminal is logging keystrokes with a 12 millisecond latency. You run a diagnostic. Someone with an administrative clearance higher than yours, someone at Fort Meade, is mirroring your workstation at 3 in the morning. They are reading your deleted drafts. They are looking for the missing terahertz data. They know you held something back. Then it's your cell phone. You notice your phone battery drains 20% faster when you are walking from your car to your front door. You notice your phone occasionally drops from 5G down to 3G for exactly 12 seconds before reconnecting. You know exactly what that means. That is a forced network downgrade via an SS7 protocol vulnerability. Someone is using an IMSI catcher, a rogue cell site simulator, a military-grade dirtbox device. They are masquerading as a base station to force a handshake with your phone's SIM card. They are stripping away your end-to-end encryption. They are pinging your exact GPS coordinates every 4 minutes. They are intercepting every single piece of data traffic you generate. You are being watched, not casually. You are being surgically monitored. You start seeing the vehicles, unmarked, dark-colored Chevrolet Suburbans parked on your quiet, tree-lined street in Pasadena. They are always there. The engines are always idling. The windows are tinted so dark they look like obsidian. You drive down the 210 freeway to go to work, and you notice a utility van with California exempt license plates pulling out exactly 4 cars behind you. It follows you all the way to the JPL gates. They are establishing a baseline. They are letting you know that you are a piece of federal property. They are reminding you that your brain holds a secret that makes nuclear weapons look like bows and arrows. Then comes the gaslighting. You come home from work one evening. The deadbolts are locked. The alarm system is armed. Everything looks perfectly normal. But when you walk into your kitchen, your coffee mug, which you always leave on the left side of the sink, is sitting directly in the center of your dining table. Nothing is stolen, nothing is broken. But the message is delivered with terrifying clarity. We can touch you anytime we want. Your sanctuary is an illusion. You belong to us. The consistency that made up your life shatters. You stop sleeping, you lose weight, you install heavy-duty deadbolts, knowing they are entirely useless against the people watching you. You buy blackout curtains, you start looking at your own colleagues differently. Which one of them is the handler? Which one of them is writing the psychological evaluations for the Pentagon, waiting for you to crack? By the summer of 2024, the outside world starts catching up to your nightmare. The whispers in the intelligence community bleed into the public consciousness. The UAP disclosure movement gains massive, unstoppable traction. A former Air Force intelligence officer named David Grush sits in front of the United States Congress. Under oath, under penalty of perjury, he testifies that the federal government is operating a multi-decade UAP crash retrieval and reverse engineering program. He testifies that the United States is in possession of intact non-human spacecraft. He talks about white-collar crimes. He talks about people who have been threatened, physically hurt, and administratively terrorized to keep the secret. You watch the congressional hearings on a secure monitor in your locked office. Your hands are shaking so badly you spill your coffee on your keyboard. The politicians are demanding physical proof. The skeptics are demanding a piece of the metal. The Senate Intelligence Committee is drafting legislation with eminent domain clauses to seize advanced materials from private aerospace contractors like Lockheed Martin and Battelle. You realize with a sudden, freezing spike of absolute terror that you are the ultimate bottleneck. If Congress forces the Pentagon to open the vaults, they are going to find the metamaterials. And when they find the metamaterials, they are going to need someone to explain how they work. They are going to subpoena the scientist who looked at the bismuth and magnesium under the electron microscope. You are that someone. And if the transparency movement kicks the doors down, you are the very first person they are going to drag into a closed-door SIF to testify. You are the one who can prove the government possesses off-world technology. You possess the functional blueprint for a post-scarcity energy technology. The shadow government knows this. You dig deeper on the secure, encrypted Tor networks used by defense researchers. You start looking at history. You look at the SDI, Star Wars, defense scientists in the 1980s. The Marconi and GEC scientists in the UK who worked on highly classified radar and aerospace projects. Dozens of them, all dead under bizarre circumstances. Suicides by impossible methods, car crashes with no skid marks, drownings in shallow water. And then you look at the present, and you find the bloody trail of breadcrumbs. You find the new pattern. You're not the only one. There is a modern cluster of cases. Scientists, radar operators, defense-linked aerospace engineers, nuclear researchers, people who looked at the anomalous data and saw the terrifying truth. Over the last 3 years, they have been quietly disappearing from the board. Some died in sudden, single-car accidents, their vehicles bursting into flames before the paramedics could arrive. Some abruptly retired, moved to off-grid cabins in Idaho, and completely stopped returning calls, essentially burying themselves alive. Some simply walked out their front doors and vanished, leaving their keys on the counter. The conspiracy isn't just watching you anymore. The architects of the special access programs are cleaning house. They are burning the evidence, and the evidence is human memory. You realize you are a glaring red data point in a national security sweep. You are an unacceptable liability to a trillion-dollar black budget infrastructure. You are 60 years old, you live alone, you have no immediate family to ask questions, you know too much. You have outlived your usefulness. The government doesn't need you to analyze the metal anymore. They need you to be quiet forever. The anxiety becomes a physical weight on your chest. It's ice water in your veins. Every time you run a test on any material in the lab, you feel that low, vibrating hum in your teeth. You feel like the meta-material is a beacon, and you are the one holding it. You know the purge is coming. You can feel the invisible noose tightening. You need out. You need a weekend away. You need to touch normal, terrestrial dirt. You need to remind yourself what physics feels like when it isn't fundamentally broken. You need to seek out the predictable laws of nature, gravity, friction, things you can measure, things that do not glow with terahertz radiation. You call a friend, someone completely disconnected from JPL, from the government, from the crushing weight of the metamaterials. You tell them you need to go for a hike. June 22nd, 2025, it is a Sunday. You wake up early, you lace up your hiking boots at 11:40 in the morning. You fill a plain, scuffed plastic water bottle in your kitchen, screw the cap on tight, and slide it into the side pocket of your gray windbreaker. You leave your house. You lock the deadbolt. You do not look over your shoulder, even though the hair on the back of your neck is standing straight up. The black SUV is not parked on your street today. The digital static on your phone line seems completely quiet. The utility van does not follow you. For the first time in 36 months, you feel a tiny, fragile spark of relief. You convince yourself that you are just paranoid. You convince yourself that you are safe. You get in your car and drive north on the 210 freeway. You exit at La Cañada Flint Ridge and wind your way up State Route 2, the Angeles Crest Highway, heading deep into the San Gabriel Mountains. It is a winding, serpentine road that cuts through the sheer granite canyons, taking you far above the smog layer of Los Angeles. You park your car at the Eaton Saddle Trailhead at exactly 12:58 p.m. Your companion is already there, leaning against their car. You're going to hike the trail past the Mueller Tunnel up toward San Gabriel Peak. You know this terrain intimately. The San Gabriel Mountains are steep and unforgiving, but you know exactly where this trail levels out, where it climbs, and where the massive, ancient granite slabs catch the afternoon light. At 1:07 p.m., you and your companion set out. The soil under your boots is decomposed granite. It is pale and compact, and it holds your weight cleanly. The air smells like pine needles, hoary leaf ceanothus, and heated rock. You take deep breaths, you feel the sun on your face. You are 60 years old, you're in good health, and you're not thinking about bismuth. You're not thinking about isotopic ratios. You're not thinking about the CIA or the shadow government analyzing your cell phone telemetry. You are just a human being walking on the earth. By 1:45 p.m., you pass through the Mueller Tunnel. The stone and mortar walls feel solid and real. The dark, cool air washes over you for 66 yards before spitting you back out into the blinding, flat white light of the sun. You emerge onto a flat plateau section of the trail, overlooking a steep, chaparral-cloaked ravine. Your companion is walking slightly ahead of you. They are stretching their legs, setting a faster pace. You let them. You enjoy the quiet. The gap between you opens up to 10 feet, then 20, then 30. It is exactly 1:52 in the afternoon. Your companion stops. They turn around, looking back down the trail at you to check on your pace. You make eye contact. You smile. You raise your right hand and give a small, casual wave. They smile back, turn their head forward, and continue walking. You take a deep breath of the dry sage air. And then, the atmosphere shifts, It doesn't happen like a Hollywood movie. There is no flash of light. There is no deafening roar of a jet engine. There are no men jumping out of the bushes with black bags. There is no black helicopter swooping down from the clouds. It happens like a vacuum seal breaking. The ambient noise of the forest, the wind, the birds, the crunch of gravel terminates instantaneously. It doesn't fade out. It is deleted. The phenomenon known in UAP encounters as the Oz factor. Absolute crushing silence. The air pressure drops so violently your eardrums pop, and then you feel it. A low, bone-rattling electromagnetic hum vibrating inside your skull. It is the exact same terahertz frequency you measured in the arc jet chamber 3 years ago. The hairs on your arms stand straight up. The smell of the sage and the pine is instantly scrubbed from the air, replaced entirely by the sharp, metallic tang of ozone. It smells like an electrical fire. You try to open your mouth to scream, to call out to your companion who is only 30 feet away. But your vocal cords cannot push the air. The atmosphere around you has turned into a localized vacuum. The physical space around you is adapting to a thermal and gravitational load that shouldn't exist on this planet. The light shifts. The blinding California sun fractures, bending and refracting around you as if you are standing at the bottom of a swimming pool. The geometric, crystalline structure of the bismuth magnesium alloy flashes behind your eyes. You look down at your hands. The edges of your physical form are blurring. The atomic structure of your body is being subjected to a gravitational envelope that defies terrestrial physics. You do not panic. In your final seconds of existence on this earth, your hyper-rational scientist brain does exactly what it was trained to do. It analyzes the data. You realize the conspiracy goes deeper than you ever imagined. You aren't being assassinated by a sniper. You aren't being bagged and thrown into the back of a Suburban by the CIA. The shadow government doesn't need to dig a grave for you. They have the technology. They reverse-engineered the propulsion system, and they are using it to silently, perfectly scrub their liabilities from reality itself. Or maybe it isn't the government at all. Maybe the frequency you broadcast in the lab acted as a distress beacon. Maybe the non-human intelligence that originally engineered the metal finally came to collect the one human being on the planet who understood how their engine worked. Either way, you are being extracted. You knew too much, and now the universe is correcting the error. The physics of your reality are being folded. 40 seconds pass. 30 feet ahead, your companion stops. They realize they haven't heard your boots crunching on the dirt behind them. They turn around to offer you some water. The trail is completely empty. You're not there. There is no sound of a struggle. There is no sliding rock, no falling debris down the ravine, no impact, nothing. Your companion calls your name. Monica? The forest absorbs the sound. The vacuum breaks, the wind rushes back in, the dry sage rustles. The afternoon sun is flat and white. Your companion frowns, confused. They walk back down the 30 feet of pale, dusty trail to the exact coordinate where you were last standing. They look over the edge of the cliff. They look into the thick, whitethorn bushes. There is no sign of you, not a single footprint pointing off the path, not a displaced stone, not a dropped water bottle, not a single thread of gray fabric from your windbreaker caught on the manzanita branches. Your companion searches the immediate perimeter for 11 agonizing minutes. Primal, lizard brain panic sets in. Their hands shake uncontrollably as they pull out their phone and dial 911. At 2:37 in the afternoon, the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department receives the call. Because of your clearance level, because of your title at NASA, the response is not standard, it is immediate, and it is overwhelmingly massive. Ground teams deploy within the hour. By nightfall, the airspace above San Gabriel Peak is completely locked down by the federal government. Helicopters equipped with military-grade FLIR, forward-looking infrared, are making slow, methodical passes over the mountain canopy. They are shifting color palettes from black-hot to white-hot. They are reading the heat signatures of the terrain, looking for the 98.6-degree thermal outline of a human body against the cooling dirt. They find coyotes, they find deer, they find absolutely nothing else. Search and rescue brings specialized tracking dogs to the trailhead. Bloodhounds, trained to track a specific human scent profile for miles through rugged terrain. They let the dogs smell the driver's seat of your car. The handler brings the dogs up the trail, following your exact route. They reach the flat plateau. They reach the exact coordinate where your companion last saw you standing. The dogs sniff the dirt, and then they sit down. They whine. They pace in a tight, terrified circle. They lose the scent, not somewhere down the ravine, not 100 yards into the brush where a team of Black Ops operatives might have dragged you. They lose it at the coordinate, at the exact millimeter where your boots last touched the earth. The scent trail doesn't wander off. It goes straight up, as if you simply stopped existing on that specific patch of dirt. For 3 days, ground teams comb the slopes on rappel lines. Drones map the ravines using LiDAR. No physical evidence is ever recovered. No evidence of any kind that a 60-year-old woman in excellent health was standing in that location 40 seconds before she was not. But the digital trail is what elevates your missing person case into a classified national security crisis. The FBI Cyber Division quietly takes over the digital forensics. They subpoena your cell phone carrier. When a normal cell phone powers down, or loses battery, or drops out of a coverage zone, it logs a shutdown event. It executes an SS7 protocol handshake, sending a final digital ping to the nearest cell tower, updating its location one last time to say it is leaving the network. Your phone did none of these things. At exactly 1:52 p.m., the signal terminated instantaneously, mid-connection. There was no shutdown sequence. The telecom carrier logs it as a hard termination. In the world of signals intelligence, a hard termination is the kind of signal loss that only results from 3 highly specific scenarios. The device is instantaneously pulverized by high explosives. The device is suddenly enclosed in a flawless Faraday cage made of a metamaterial that blocks 100% of all electromagnetic transmission. Or the device is moved out of the coverage network at a velocity that defies the speed of light. Your bank accounts register 0 activity after 1:52 p.m. on June 22nd. No ATM withdrawals, no credit card transactions, no passport pings at any airport. You're simply gone. Here is where the documented public record ends, and here is where the terrifying reality of the conspiracy begins. What is documented is your disappearance, its precise timeline, the total physical and digital absence of evidence, your high-level security clearance at JPL, and the leaked private statements of your colleagues regarding the anomalous materials your department was analyzing. The Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department does not classify your case as a homicide. There is no public evidence of foul play. The official position remains an open missing person case. Your hiking companion is interrogated relentlessly. They are polygraphed 3 times by the FBI. They pass every single test. Detectives look at the timeline and realize the basic logistical impossibility of the alternative. A single human being cannot murder someone, perfectly conceal a body without spilling a single drop of blood, scrub the dirt of all footprints, and vanish a cell phone from the digital grid, all on a public trail in a 40-second window. Your companion is cleared, but by the beginning of 2026, less than 8 months after your disappearance, the FBI is forced to quietly acknowledge to a closed congressional oversight committee that they are looking at a pattern. Your name is the glowing red anchor point in a national security inquiry. You are the ultimate data point in the disappearance of defense-linked aerospace personnel. The people who track this pattern, independent journalists, congressional investigators, researchers deep inside the UAP transparency movement, look at your background with intense, terrifying focus. Not because you are the most prominent name, but because your specialty is the most dangerous. For 5 years, the central claim of the disclosure movement has not been about lights in the sky. It has been about the hardware. Whistleblowers have sworn under oath that the government possesses intact craft of non-human origin. And if those materials exist, someone had to analyze them. Someone had to look at the bismuth and magnesium cross-section and say, this structure is not random. Something organized this. Your department was running the analysis. Your instruments produced results that human physics could not account for. You cracked the code of the terahertz waveguide. You knew how to turn the machine on. And because you proved the conspiracy was real, you vanished into thin air. The FBI's public position on this pattern focuses heavily on foreign intelligence. The Director of National Intelligence goes on television and describes the threat of foreign adversaries targeting American aerospace talent as credible and ongoing. That is the official frame. That is what they are allowed to say on the evening news to avoid widespread global panic. But there is another frame, A frame whispered in CFs deep beneath the Pentagon. If a foreign intelligence agency wanted your knowledge, they would have kidnapped you from your driveway. They would have hacked your servers. They would have left tire tracks, digital fingerprints, surveillance footage. A struggle. Human spies do not extract a human being from a mountain trail in 40 seconds without disturbing the dust. You are a scientist who spent her entire life measuring the physical properties of reality. You believed with your whole heart that if you looked carefully enough and measured precisely enough, the data would always tell you what the thing actually was. The data on your own disappearance fits on a single sheet of paper, and the paper is completely blank. The thermal cameras found nothing. The tracking dogs found nothing. The satellites found nothing. The phone left no trace. 40 seconds left zero evidence. Your photographs of the test samples are still sitting in the classified vaults at JPL. The cross-sections of the alloys under thermal stress. The organized, beautiful, utterly alien structures that should not be able to hold themselves together, but hold themselves together anyway. You once told a colleague, something that cannot exist without a reason for existing always leaves a pattern. The 30 feet of trail leaves a pattern. It is a pattern that sits in a highly classified case file with your name on it. A pattern that does not resolve and does not decay. There are 3 theories left in the wake of your absence. Some believe you are in the ground somewhere in the San Gabriel Mountains, murdered by a clandestine government kill team that decided you knew too much, buried so deep the dogs will never find you, silenced before you could testify to Congress and collapse the fossil fuel industry. Some believe you are alive, held in an illegal black site beyond the reach of Congress, your mind being strip-mined for every piece of data you collected on the metamaterials. Existing in a state of indefinite detention that cannot be described in any public record, forced to build the armor for the next generation of unacknowledged craft. But there is a third theory, the one that keeps the congressional investigators awake at night in cold sweats. The theory that you were extracted by the source. The materials you analyzed belonged to something. The terahertz frequency you triggered in the vacuum chamber was a beacon. And the intelligence that engineered that metal, an intelligence that can fold space, bypass gravity, and move through the atmosphere without friction, finally came back. They didn't come to silence you. They came to collect the only human being on the planet who actually figured out how their technology worked. The official record cannot determine which of these is true. The government will never admit what you discovered. What the record holds is the coordinate. The Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department mapped it. It is a real point on the surface of the earth. You can drive up the 210 freeway right now, park at the Eaton Saddle Trailhead, hike up past the Mueller Tunnel, and stand on the exact patch of dirt where you were last seen. People do it. They hike up there, they stand on the flat, pale, decomposed granite, they smell the sage, and they look at the 30 feet of empty space. They try to understand what the physics of the situation permit. The physics do not permit an answer. You measured materials for a living. You measured the exact space between atoms. You built what survives the fire. The gap between where your companion was walking and where you were last seen standing, smiling, and waving is exactly 30 feet. It is the distance between the known universe and the terrifying, unexplainable void of what the government is hiding. That gap is 30 feet. It has not changed, and you are not there.